What up, everybody? This is Chris from shotbytherobot.com. I'm a professional photographer based in Colorado, and today we're going to talk about the 7 Artisans 35mm f2 lens for the M mount. So today we're talking about the 7 Artisans 35mm f2 Type 2 lens for the M mount. I was just seeing, really, it's a 35 something a lens I needed. As a working photographer, someone who's actually using these cameras not just for street shooting, which is the majority of people shooting with Leica. I'm using them for commercial, portrait, event work as well. So I want to see, do I need a 35 in my kit? And so I decided to try this one out, see how it worked. So first thing, packaging. This looks dope. A little flap here that's magnetized, comes with a velvet bag, comes with a little screwdriver. You need to calibrate it. Mine came calibrated fresh out the box. I was able to shoot it right away, no issues. But if you have that issue, remember digital M's. Hopefully you got one. If not, you got a friend that got one, or you can go to a store and get one or rent one. For maybe they'll even let you use it just for a little bit to try it out to calibrate your lens. I personally had no issues, but that's something to keep in mind, that these lenses don't always come calibrated to work with the rangefinder. Outside of that, also comes with this little leather case that if you want to look like a commando, you can put a belt loop through right here. It's real tight, actually. I don't know, it'll be a thin belt, bro. It also has these little ringlets here. You can put a strap on, so if you're someone who maybe only shoots one body, 2 lenses, you could put a little strap on this and carry your lens with you and have your camera on your neck. And it is like felt lined here. And then the lens, overall pretty small, a little bit wider than some of the lenses I have, like my 28 and my 50. This is a little bit wider, but on camera, nothing. So don't worry about that, not a problem at all. Comes with, back cap, of course, metal lens cap. But it has the lining around it, so you're not going to rub your lens when you put it on. It actually makes sure it fits nice and snug as well. The lens tab on this is metal and integrated, or brass or whatever, I don't know. But it's not plastic, not the plastic joint that they give you where you can just put it on your lens. This is actually integrated in the lens. So just one thing, if you hadn't seen it or whatever, I'm sure you have, but just wanted to give you a little bit of information on the lens here. As it does have a clicked aperture. Again, this is for M mount, so this is made to shoot photography. So it is has clicked aperture, but the clicks, I don't know how well you heard that, but the clicks are not very loud. It's pretty well dampened. It is like you have to really be feeling for it. When you change by feel, you do have to really be feeling for it. I personally don't think I recall it being knocked, where it got knocked out of position, that I recall, where I put it in the bag and pull it back up. But it is something that while you're actually shooting with, you need to be it's not the greatest when you are switching aperture by feel. It is half stops, so I like that personally. I prefer half stops to third stops. So, but overall, I think it's a really excellent ergonomics wise lens. So let's talk about the lens itself, qualities of it. Did I keep it? So I'll break it up, pros and cons, as I like to do here. I got my notes right here on my phone, so if you see me looking down, it is what it is, bro. So first things first, as I mentioned, ergonomics feels really good. Fits on the camera, wasn't front heavy at all. Has the lens, the focusing tab. Wish the focusing tab was a little bit wider because I have bigger fingers, but overall I had no issues with that. Like I said, all metal. Looks like it's at home on the Leica M, which matters because I want my shit to look good when I'm taking these pictures. Image quality was actually really sharp. At F2 there's a little bit of softness, but still acceptable sharpness. Anything faster than that, or but brought down, if you focus down or step down, it gets sharper. So it's modern optics is now it's going to be hard to can be completely trash, especially when you're using a Leica lens formula. It does have flare. It does flare in the sun. I personally like the way it looks when it flares. I've seen bad flares before. I personally liked how this one flared, so I didn't have an issue with it. Though it is, like, the way it's set, the front element's pretty deep. Let's see if I can show here. The front element, if it's hard to see here, but if you can tell, there it is. The front element is kind of deep back here. So if it's flaring, you can literally just shift a little bit and it'll be hooded again. And again, it did come with a lens hood and everything. So if you really need that, it's in there. But me personally, I liked the way it looked when it flared. So that's a personal preference. Now, con-wise, I didn't have a lot, honestly. It's a little chunky, which for some people that might be a thing. I know some people are really, like, aesthetics are a reason why I get what I get sometimes, but it typically is not a deal breaker. I personally found it on camera, it fit and looked really nice. It actually reminded me of the Leica Q, the way that looks. It kind of reminded me like that, like the here. So I was loving it. I thought it was really cool. However, one issue I actually had, and I don't know if it's my copy or if this is how it goes. The focusing is actually pretty stiff. Let me see. Here, I'm gonna put my mic down and I'm gonna pick my 50 and I'll take this 35 and kind of show, hey, me focusing both, and you might be able to tell I have to work harder at one. As you can see, I'm like, this is nothing. Like, it's smooth. It's like everything. It's perfectly fine on the. And this is my Leica Summicron here. With this one, you can even see like my finger is not moving as fast as it was with the other one, because I'm putting so much more. Like, as you can see, like with the other one, just one finger was enough to move everything. I actually feel like I have to like brace my rest of my fingers against the lens to move the focusing tab. Now, it's not like, oh my god, molasses or anything like that. I don't want to seem like this is like unfocusable at all. Not at all, because honestly it made it so that the minute focus is when I was trying to get, perfect focus, because it didn't move as much. It was actually a little bit easier for that. But overall, if I'm going back and forth, you'll definitely notice how much stiffer this focus is. Over time, it'll probably loosen up, but there were definitely times when I was using it, I would just lay in bed and I would literally just go back and forth, hoping I could just loosen it up a little bit more. But it didn't really get that much looser, so keep that in mind. If you're going to be switching between lenses, that the focus is a lot stiffer, at least on my copy. I don't know if that's every copy, but on my copy, this focus was way stiffer than what I've experienced shooting with both this Leica lens and my other lens, which is a Voigtlander. I did mention as well the aperture. The clicks are there, but they're very faint. Not a deal breaker. Overall, I feel like these are the only cons I found with the lens, because I like the flare, so I'm not treating that as a con. You may, but I didn't. So overall, the only cons I had were literally the stiff focus and the aperture ring not being as clicky as I personally like. Besides that, I had no fault with the lens over the weeks I used it. I felt like it was acceptably sharp. I'm not pixel peeping, especially on a 11-year-old camera anyway. So for me, I'm not, and I wasn't here, I'm looking at it at like 200% just to make sure stuff's in focus. I'm not going up 400 or whatever, because no one does that, and I don't put my stuff, like my clients don't even do that. And the stuff I put online, you can't do that because it's not the size to do. So I didn't worry about it at 400. But even if I did, I honestly feel like I'd be totally fine. Like, it's not going to delete those photos, because at 400%, they don't look. I can't count pores, but at 200 I can. Don't give a fuck. Overall, I think this lens is gonna fit in a lot of people's kit. However, did it fit in mine? No. And it's not really because of the lens, it's more because of me. I went and looked at the photos, and there was a couple times where I couldn't get any closer. This was where I was at. I shot it with a 35 and I shot it with a 50, and every single time I preferred the 50. There were, like I said, times I couldn't zoom with my feet, but even if I could zoom with my feet, I'm getting a wider view than I would have preferred, and I don't feel like it's as immersive as a 50. I know 50 is closer. I know they say between 40 and 50 is what the human eye sees. Maybe I'll mess with a 40 actually and see how I feel about that. But right now, 50, like every time, I preferred the 50. It's actually why I got rid of my X100V as well. I just want to see, hey, do I want a 35 to have around for those days where I want to just walk out with one lens and cover each thing? But honestly, when I look at a 35, each time I'm like, well, I could have shot that with a 28 and I would have had more room. Like I would have got a more dynamic picture because I have more separation between my background and foreground because the wide angle is going to push it away here. And then 35 just looks So ultimately, it wasn't even that. Now, I will say the stiff focus, if I was a 35 guy, it eventually, if this focus did not loosen up more, I would have ended up getting probably a 35 Sumerit, a Voigtlander 35, maybe one of those light lens lab 35s. I would have replaced this eventually if the focus does not significantly loosen up, and not because the focus by itself is bad, it's because switching back and forth is a noticeable difference. When I shot with just this lens, which I did for the majority of the review time that I had, the focus was stiff. I noticed it, but it didn't bother me. When I put on my 50 and focused that and then went back to this, I was like, oh my goodness, it's much more effort to focus this. In that, I just want my lens to feel the same. Between my Voigtlander 28 and my Leica 50, I can go back and forth with no issues on the focus. With this one, I notice it, and that would have been eventually a game changer for me. So I will say, I can recommend this lens to a few people. If you are someone that shoots 35 and this is the only 35 you can afford, get it. It's a good lens. Be aware that it's going to flare. You like that or you don't, take precautions accordingly. If you're someone who just wants a spare 35 and this is all you can afford, get this for now, but eventually I think you're going to want to upgrade to something that has a smoother focusing tab, because you're going to go back and forth between your lenses and you're going to notice that this one just takes more effort. But if you're someone who just occasionally shoots the 35 and you don't want to spend a lot of money, yeah, get this lens. I would say get it. Know that you're gonna, the focus is gonna be a little tight, but the quality is there. I think it's worth it. If I was a 35 shooter, I'd probably keep it, but I do think eventually I would have upgraded to something that had a smoother focusing tab if this didn't loosen up to the level of my other lenses. Overall, though, I think it's an excellent lens. I'm gonna be on the lookout for their other stuff. I've got a kit right now that I'm pretty good with, but I wouldn't mind having a faster telephoto portrait lens. So if they put out one, I know there's a 90 that's like a 1.25, but it's a massive hunk of glass. If they were to put out like a 90 F2, a 92.8, or something like that, and it had a decent size, I could see that living in my kit going forward. So 7 Artisans, keep me on the list for reviews, because I'm looking forward to what you guys are gonna do next. Overall, I think it's a pretty decent lens, and it's gonna find some homes. Mine already has. It's getting out of here. It's gonna be put in a box and ready to ship out soon. So if you enjoyed that review, I hope it does. If you did, let's leave me a little comment telling me what you shoot and where you're from. I want to know who's watching these. Peace. Keep shooting.